Alright. For a little while. Okay. Hey, everybody. Sort of like Jamaica? I don't know. There's Hannah. Oh, what time is it? 10:21. Was it going to be here for like till 10:26? Yeah, from that time. About 3 minutes. This is like that chimney. Yo-yo. The Hollywood yo-yo is the latest imitator. Yo, that's weak. I guess it's not going to last long. Oh, they're probably not doing the garbage, or the garbages. They're probably not doing the news, though. Alright, one more minute. Yo, Gregory John Romack. Silo. That was the name for black people when I was in Boston, way back in the day. What else did I talk about? Oh, yeah, that's pretty fun. Expense habit. That was another word they used for buy me like salmon. Expense habit. Not expensive habit. Expense habit. There's some other ones. Billy did. Was it Billy did? Was my Billy did crane. Where's a kitty? Where's a kitty? It was like Bob Hope. It was Paul Revere. Here's how I busted my foot. I was running, and I hit it. It was a thing like this on the thing, only it was like here. It went out like that on the streets. And the streets were all like brick as well. And I was at a place where it was almost like the corner was about like there, distance-wise. And I was running, and I hit that at like this odd angle, like right here. And then I like this, and I busted my foot. I think I fell like down that way. I think I fell, or I like hobbled over like this. I tend to think I kind of hobbled over a little bit. And then there's the kitty, kind of like the truck. And then people would like carry me through like the town, and I would spend like days at one place or days like another, you know, or like a day at one place and a day at like another. I think there was a thing where I would like spend the night in one place. You know, I'd be like there like usually like, I think like late evening, and then I'd spend like during like the whole day like at another or something. I think it was like later, because I think like the ladies were all kind of like, they were all sort of like involved. The ladies would like sit in a room somewhere, but first it was just that one, and then she got all of her other group of lady friends, and they would all kind of go into a room, and I would sort of just, you know, I'd sit there and be kind of still, and they'd be still, and then like, you know, I'd do something, and then like some sort of thing would happen, you know, and anyway, and then they would all kind of go like, and then they would get flush, not flushed, but like flush, and they would get I think wet. They go wet, getting wet. Flush I think meant like sweating. Wet I think wet meant like, you know, like what it means today. And they would like, sometimes they would go off into like a room together, or sometimes together and sometimes like by themselves. A lot of them tended to go like into the dining area, not necessarily like off into a private room or something. And that was it. Not at first. It was like, at first it was just the woman and I, and then like the ladies were kind of there, but they were, you know, they just didn't do anything else. But we'd have like we'd just sort of sit. It was like a sit-in, you know. We'd just sit there, and you know, usually I'd have my I had to be the one that had my back to the window, and then all the ladies would, you know, they'd sit like wherever. Usually they'd fight over like who could have like the best view or something. I think there was like some sort of dispute about that. And so anyway, you know, see, I check the time on that. I'd do my things, and something would happen, and then you know, and they'd like kind of watch, and they were a lot like, and they looked like Katharine Hepburn in The African Queen when she's reading the book. You know, she's supposed to be like, hey, and that one woman that was on the porch, and she was like, he would like say da 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 da, and she wouldn't react. She was like just reading the book. I think she was holding it with the other hand. She would just hold, and she'd turn the page every once in a while, and then he would say, you skinny old maid, and she'd kind of just a little bit, and then she'd go back to like, you know, doing what she. They were kind of like that. We'd kind of sit there, and sometimes I would like, I think like say stuff, probably like an Indian and stuff or something. Usually not. And I think she would kind of go like, because this was like the word for quiet, and then she would like across the way, and then she had to come back over to where I was at and just be like, you gotta just please be quiet, or she'd touch me like here. And so that was like the signal from across the room to be like quiet. And so I would be like quiet, and I just kind of sit there, and then, you know, like something would happen, and then I don't know, something happening now. Something's always happening. And then so, you know, and then like that's what they would do, and they would be there for like an hour or so, I think. And then sometimes they would like leave. There was sort of a thing, I think, where they would do it like an hour every day, and then they would kind of leave me alone, you know, that kind of thing. And then later it was sort of like, I think they figured maybe I wasn't all right with that, doing it more than like an hour a day or something. And then they were kind of like, oh, missed the bird. I got it, I just didn't catch it on film. Anyway, and then later it was just sort of like, could they like leave and then come back? Like some woman that said something, I think, and the other woman was like, you the one that I knew well was like, you know, you can't be like that with him, you know. And I was sort of like, somehow I like signaled, sure, that's fine. And so they would like leave, and then they would come back, usually with like different women and stuff. There in Boston, it was like they had like different like social groups for like ladies, and every like 2 or 3 blocks or 1 block or something, like there'd be a corner, and then like an area of about maybe a 1 block radius or something would have like a women's social group. And then I think there was like 3 or 4, I thought it was like 4 of them in town that were like kind of large social groups. And it seemed like, I think what I kind of gathered was like all these women who belonged to like usually about 2 or 3 different social groups. They were almost more like book clubs, I think, than anything else. And so, and like the one that was like there originally, that was like the one woman that I knew that was like her small local social club. I think she felt a little bit sheepish about not inviting like the larger one earlier or something. And so there was like some kind of thing like that. And then all the women got kind of involved. That's why I had to wind up leaving Boston. Boston was supposed to be, I think, basically like a gay men's kind of town or something. And I think it was supposed to get like that more and more. I got the attention of the women, and all I wanted to do was hang out with the women all day, you know. And it kind of like, I think it kind of like ruined the whole thing for the colonial bigwigs, literally and figuratively, I suppose. And they didn't like that at all, I guess. And it was just like, and then I had to kind of like leave. Went to some place, I think it was like in Virginia. It was like something kind of like out of the Waltons, although the place looked different. It was a little bit more in the mountains even than like the Waltons house, but it was sort of like that, where I was in with this really large family for a while, and eventually I just wanted to kind of like leave, wanting to leave since I got here. And I knew this one girl that was there, and that was kind of nice. I think they were supposed to be like I think the father was supposed to be like a local minister or something, but I don't know how they could get like a really nice house and all those kids and that kind of salary. But I don't know. It was just, I'm thinking like this is like, 200 years ago or whatever, 250 or something. Oh, let's see. Anyway, that was like some of my old early experiences with Boston. I just wanted to hang out with the women all the time. Actually, I like the Crane fellow, the Billy Deed, I think is his name. That's what I called him anyway. Crane. Gosh, there were some other words that I learned too, and I can't remember what they were. There was talk there too. I think and I got later from Granddad Dad when I went to like North Bend that they were actually gonna like, and then Becky and Stacy would talk about it, like in the early 80s, where they were gonna 1980s, where they were gonna talk about like tweaking the language so that you would say and write some words over and over again in a certain kind of way. And there was like some movement, I think, afoot to like simplify the language. And then back in those days, it was even like more simpler. People used fewer letters for things and stuff. I learned about all that like kind of like later. So anyway, yeah, I remember that. It was like, Boston was basically just, it was like completely covered with bricks. I remember Baltimore had like much more wider spaces and stuff like that. So I remember seeing like my first black person there in Boston. We went to go look for one. They were called silos, like I was just saying. And we found one, and everybody was sort of kind of laughing because I was laughing about the black person, but everybody had already seen black people before. And then it was like, they made this joke about how I had like these layers on my like nose. I think I was laughing at the black person, I think. And then it was like I had these like layers on my nose or something, is how they were kind of like indicating or something. And everybody like started laughing about me and my nose. I think later eventually it was like the black guy that was like, all right, everybody kind of like stop it now, that's enough, like the one guy I could like, everybody else there could make fun of, and like the one fellow I would make fun of, was sort of like the one that had to kind of be the one to sort of stop all the talk or something like that. And then I felt kind of bad about it. I was like, gee whiz. But they were like, it's like he's got one thing and another thing and another thing. And they went over to like one of the brick wall things, like way across the way there. There was like the wharf, and it was like some wood, but then it was like at some point it got to be like brick or something. Anyway, they got over to like the wall of some building, and it had a bunch of brick, and they were like, it's just layered up like that. That's what he's got there. And of course, in those days, my skin would have been much, much darker because I'm half Arab Jewish, and then the other half is First Nation, whatever, from from North Vancouver Island in BC. So that was Boston. I think their little experiment just didn't work out. And then I went to like North Bend, and as I recall from Granddad, it was sort of like a kind of a no man's land because they didn't know what to do with me. And I kind of went back to my Indian ways where I was playing with like sticks and stuff like that, hoping to drum up enough magic to go home. So that's unusual. Yeah, it was like a bricks along the building. They used that to say that was basically like my nose, and they started kind of like, they laughed at me like quite a bit. And a lot of people were kind of like, I hadn't seen, these were like sailors from like all over the world, I guess. And they were like, I don't see the like. There was something, I think, although I'm not sure, about why I was wearing Western-like clothes, real puffy pirate shirt type stuff. And all that kind of stuff. So it was like, and the rolled up sleeve thing too. I was like, I'd go out and like roll up my sleeves in public, and people were like, you can't do that. And then all of a sudden everybody started like doing it, rolling up their sleeves in public and having them rolled up in public. I think I was told there was something like a rule that even sailors had to. There was like a rule in town that you could get like a fine for it or something if you had your sleeves rolled up or something. But you could do it on the boat, and then when you got into shore, you had to roll them up. Or you could have them unrolled, but you had to be out of view of like the public. So basically, when you got into town, you had to like roll down your sleeves or something like that. I thought I got something where it was like the ladies of the town that were the ones that came up with that rule or something like that. And then everybody was just like, well, you can't do that, and then say he can do it. And they were like, well, we like him, and if he does it, well, the rest of you could probably do it. And so. Oh, that was kind of interesting. Yeah, we used to go. The Paul Revere fellow and I, we used to go pounding on the boats and things like that. We weren't supposed to, and then we got to like I forgot what it's called, the rear anyway, the carina of the boat, and we'd start at the bow, and then we would go around to like the back of the boat, and what we would do is he would said something like, I only got it like later, I think I actually got it with gestures, I think, at the time, where he said, it's funny because we're at the end of the boat, and there's the beginning, and now we're at the end. And for some reason, I thought it was really funny, although I don't think I had a clue as to like what he was talking about. And later he got like a stick and stuff, like a kind of like a bat, I think it was like a dowel, but it was like really kind of like large or something. And he found one from somewhere, and he would hit the side of the ship. Probably where you get the term Billy Club from, because he was like Billy Dee Club. You got a little club. So, anyway, that's some of my Boston stuff. I've been talking about this. It's like people gotta like kind of follow me. If there's like people like investigating this, that, and the other stuff, it's just like I've been talking like this since like 2013. So. In the last year, especially so, in the last 6 months. No, last 9 months, since like summer, I spend probably about 2 or 3 hours a day talking like this. You kind of go, you want to know more? But I'm like, I don't know, I can't repeat all of it, and it's all out there on video. You just got to insist on seeing it. It's like Mika Mom was saying on the MSNBC, where it was just like, somebody said, it's like this constant drip, 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 and it's just like, it's getting kind of a bit tiring. Chinese water torture. And then she was just like, well, each one of these drips is really more like a flood, and it keeps happening like on a daily basis. Mika was my mom back in the day, like in the 30s and the 40s in Kennewick, Washington. 806 Button is what it's called now. And I used to say, I was talking about this morning too, I used to say stuff with her, and she would listen a little bit, and it was like stuff she didn't know apparently. And then she would listen a little bit, and then she would okay, you got to kind of shut up about that. She did with China. I remember running around the yard, but I wrote about that. And then later it was just I would say, I learned that if I said anything about anybody at any time, she would say, she would listen and stuff like that. And I could kind of get her attention that way, I guess. It was kind of entertaining. And then after, this happened about 4 or 5 days in a row, that I was awake anyway. And then later we went to the dining room table and we had a serious talk where she was just like, you gotta stop it. She was like, I want to hear it, but I want to hear about it someday. I really want to hear about it now. And she's just like, I can't, and you gotta be quiet about it. It took me a little while to get out of the habit of not saying anything. And then after a while I was kind of quiet. She was like, you're kind of wasting stuff, and some things you could say that other people don't necessarily know about, that could be helpful later. And if you say things, sometimes you sort of forget them if you say them out loud. And she's right about that. That's why I'm I talk out loud all the time like this, and it's just people got to insist on saying it. If you don't, well, you're not going to get a complete picture. All the stuff that I put out for satellite consumption and talked about right now, and verbal, and acting out a little bit, such as it is. I know it's cliched, and people say stuff like this all the time. It's probably about 1% of all the stuff that I've talked about or written about. Some of the stuff I've written about I have put out for satellite consumption, but it was 6 months ago, and I would tape it, to a garbage lid on, downtown or something like that. When I first put my ID out, they talked about, commenting on the news and stuff. They said that was when Donald Trump lied about this, that, or the other thing about the Obama birth certificate or something. That was last fall, September, I think it was, or something like that. I put passport stuff out and things like that. I don't know. What I could say to people is I'm right here, and unlike what Japan just commented on, it's just you've got the body right there. You can talk with him at any time, and you're just not doing it. When I was in Asia, they talked with me normally about the situation. Apparently, you can't talk about here because it ruins some kind of magic. But they can talk about it with me over there in Asia. Okay, well, whatever. I did so in India a little bit, did so in Africa a fair amount. Pretty much ran out of stuff by the time I got to South America. I've talked to the Mexicans later though, and we all, talk about the situation we can't talk about. I've talked about it with the Saudis, about my my Lebanese family, about how they kind of more or less sold me out. It's just, here it's just well, we can't do that. Well, we'll have an investigation though, and it's just well, all right. People want more details. It's just there's a whole bunch of stuff that's out there, and it's I even get the sense that even some people I think can see things and comment things in a certain way in code and stuff don't even see the stuff I'm literally saying. Of course, if that stuff ever got out, and everybody that knows about the situation that's going on right now, it'd probably be over with very, 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 very quickly. Stuff I'm talking about recently with China and agreements and what this, that, or the other meetings that took place, secret meetings that took place, and what things looked like. I was talking about months ago. I was talking about last summer, even in actually beginning last spring, and it's just people are now just going who knew any of this? Oh my gosh, I'm just shocked. It's one thing right after another. I'm I was saying this, 365 days ago, and it's just I'm waiting for everybody else to, I'm waiting for everybody else to play catch up here. Well, we can't. It's this, then that. Well, you can talk and we can listen. I'm that's what I've been doing. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing a lot of this stuff now, recording it and writing it and copying it. So people kind of go, I want to know more. He says there's more. There's got to be more. So. Okay. I'm going to go check my mail. Let's just run the clock out.
Yeah, exactly.
Who did that? Who did?